sitting at my infusion currently. I have taken you all with me to an infusion before. Let me show you around. So, this is my cubicle. I call it a cubicle. Kind of looks like a cubicle.
It's common to have to get lab work done right before an infusion. So, this was my first time getting lab work done for this new infusion in the Coastal Bend area. This was a brand new infusion center, and I wasn't able to see the infusion center before I was scheduled at this infusion center. So, I had no idea what to expect going to this infusion center. My labs went great. I had no problems here getting these labs done. The lab attendant was very nice. She only had to poke me once, which is very good because I have rolling veins and it can be hard to get my labs done. And then I had a beautiful drive to my infusion center, so everything was good. I had made some requests with my doctor about the type of infusion center I was looking for, and when I had arrived, I had noticed that this was not exactly what I was looking for, and so that was a little disheartening going into the place, but I was still willing to give it a shot and hope for the best. I always feel pretty nervous going into a new infusion center because I just don't know what to expect. And then, of course, there's what you are hoping, and then sometimes the reality. So I'm always looking for little things to try and kind of ease those nerves and kind of make it seem just a little bit less scary. So there was that what cancer cannot do sign that was next to where I was sitting for my infusion, and that was pretty empowering. And then there was these little drawings all over the ceiling. I have very specific infusion speeds and pre-meds, and I've kind of discussed that in my previous infusion videos. And I worked very, very hard over the last 6 months to make sure that I got all my ducks in a row and everything got sorted and sent over. And despite all my best efforts, the wires just didn't quite connect and things got jumbled. And when I showed up for my infusion, things were not sent over properly, and I was not given the proper pre-meds or the right speeds, and my infusion went horribly, horribly wrong. And so this paper kind of shows how that all unfolded for me during my infusion. So basically, in a nutshell, they had to initiate what's called the emergency protocol, and they had to stop the infusion, send in a bunch of extra nurses, and run saline through the line, give me extra prednisone, and slow the infusion during the infusion just in order for me to receive the infusion properly and get the medicines. And this made for a much rougher infusion experience, not just for me, but for anybody else in there receiving an infusion that had to witness any of this. And then my recovery was definitely twice as hard on my body. Even if it isn't your fault, when you have a bad experience medically, you know what the worst is like. So it's up to you to be a self advocate as a patient and work really hard to do everything you can to try and make it better for yourself. So that's what I did over the next 6 months. I worked really, really, really hard to make sure that my last infusion would not be my norm. So I fought and I fought and I fought to get myself into a much better environment for my next infusion. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Try as many times as it takes, but never give up. Never give up on yourself and what matters when it comes to your health. So I had to request this private suite because there was only one. The rest of this infusion center is still public, just like my last infusion center, but it was totally worth it. They met a lot of my requirements that I have and prefer for an infusion center, and I was so happy They were able to get my speeds right, my pre-meds right, and I had a good normal recovery. I was very happy, and I will be sticking with this place in the future. So, totally worth all the extra effort. Really advocate for yourself. It'll pay off, I promise. It was a ton of work and the time in between, sometimes frustrating, but totally worth it. And always remember to treat yourself, especially after doing something so hard and stressful. What things do you have on your list that are important to you for infusions? What are your absolute deal breakers? Do you prefer a standalone infusion clinic or do you prefer the safety of doing it in a hospital? Be sure to catch up on my previous infusion videos if you haven't already, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. This infusion center was so loud. I was right next to the nurses station, and so there was just a lot going on. There was little privacy. There was a curtain, but I had to end up pulling it all the way during the infusion. By the end of it, with everything going on, you could hear doctors coming in telling other patients their business, and everybody could basically see each other across from each other. I absolutely loved looking at all the drawings on the tiles on the ceiling. Here's the ones that were directly in my line of view.